Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are thrilled to be talking to the creative team responsible for the upcoming Amazon documentary, Maxine's Baby, the Tyler Perry story. I'm going to introduce you to the AAFCA members who are on the call today, starting with Nancy Green in Los Angeles, Dana Abercrombie in New York, Christine Belfort in Tampa, Florida, Reggie Pounder in Chicago, Illinois, Jill Monroe in Los Angeles, and one of our new members, Lucas Moore, coming out of DC. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
What filmmaker has had 5 movies open #1 at the box office in the last 4 years? Spielberg? Tarantino? Scorsese? No. This record belongs to Tyler Perry.
How do you feel right now, sir?
My problem with a lot of things in life is I can float above it. That's just from childhood, that's from abuse. So every moment's like, you're okay, you're safe. It's just emotion, it's just feeling, it's love.
Emmett Perry Jr. was his birth name. He changed his name to Tyler Perry because he had an estranged relationship with his dad.
I just could not understand how this man could look at me and hate me with such passion.
He had some horrific experiences that ultimately led to the characters he created and the imagination that he had.
We were so broke. We used to share burgers and talk about these great dreams that he had.
I had all these people tell me what I would never be. Nobody said what I could be.
The thing that's amazing about Tyler is he broke every rule.
A studio executive said to him, "Black people don't go to the movies." They were just wrong on every count when it came to Tyler.
Tyler was making hit after hit, and finally, people had to wake up.
My mother said, don't you ever let anybody tell you who you are. You know who you are.
I can't watch it without cringing.
I think you crossed the line.
What I will not do is change because some critics think it's not art.
Do not play him small, because he is not just some lucky Negro turned black man. There was no denying the talent and the power of Tyler Perry.
He paid attention to an audience that people ignored.
Rise up, Tyler Perry, rise up!
In the middle of all of this success, I'm dealing with my mother slowly dying. I couldn't find my way out of it.
Everything that went wrong in your life is what made everything go right.
For this moment to happen for me is beyond anything I could have ever imagined.
He was resilient. He fought the demons, the dream snatchers, the haters. People saying you're not gonna become, I have to become. And he became.
Tyler, I just want to tell you how blessed I am to have a son like you.
Nice to meet everyone. And New York, stand up. I see you. Let's get it.
Hello.
My name is Jill Monroe from RSVP with Jill Monroe on KBLA Talk 1580. I think Tyler's story is one that a lot of people don't know the background. What was your approach in putting it together, since there is so much ground to cover and so many different directions really that you could have taken this story in?
Well, our, verite was very important from the get-go. I think oftentimes you see documentaries that are made about people who have a very prominent name, and oftentimes the film comes together with a lot of archive, but we wanted to make sure the verite, that shotgun style, following him with one camera, with no crew, so the viewers sort of had the feeling of being right there next to him and intimate. So the verite was very important, and I think also giving it time and patience. That's why it sort of feels a little bit more intimate, because we did spend a lot of time with him. A lot of time, meaning almost a decade.
10 years of patience. 10 years of patience. But like Galila said, with that time, you get the vulnerability, you get the trust of your subject. And then that way we were able to tell that transparency throughout the highs and lows of his life, and not just his success.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Reggie Pounder out of Chicago Stand Up.
Chi-town.
There's a scene in the movie where someone is asking Tyler a question. He's like, are you going to do this right now? Are you seriously, you're going to ask me right now? And it seems to me to really underscore the issue of him being a private person. So how difficult was it getting stuff out of Tyler? Because that scene seems to have said it was somewhat difficult.
Yeah, that was me. I was poking and prying during, obviously, that was the opening of the newest Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. And that moment just had so much like weight and gravity to it, because I knew what he was getting ready for, basically the biggest moment of his life. And knowing, type of like the burden of sacrifice and responsibility that the studio would represent, I was like, man, I really have to just ask this question. And also, Galil would have killed me if I didn't get some type of like insight into his head. But to answer your question, it was hard in the beginning, just because with anyone, if you stick a camera in their face, which I can never do because he's 6'6", but you know what I mean. They're not going to just give you everything all at once. You have to earn that type of that trust. And then from there, little by little, he started giving those answers. Even when he didn't want to in that moment, he kind of like lend himself a little bit. He's like, all right, I guess I'll tell him something. So it was good.
Hi, I'm Nancy Green with Film Critique. Hey, one of the things that is, of course, really important to Tyler Perry's story and to this documentary is the suffering that he went through as a child. And I wanted to know, with bringing all of that stuff to the forefront for this documentary, how difficult was that to incorporate into this, especially spending so much time with it, dealing with that trauma, and also just working with him and bringing that to the forefront?
Yeah, but I think the human aspect of just how we communicate with each other, and from the get-go, we weren't talking to Tyler as Tyler the mogul. We're talking to Tyler the man. So with the sensitivity of anyone that has gone through trauma, you sort of have to have a temperature gauge. So there are days where he will reveal a little bit more, and there are days where nothing would happen. We would film for 10 hours, 11 hours. And that's sort of the practice of, I guess, for me in my experience of documentary filmmaking. The patience is a huge part of that process. And the patient, and also someone feeling, opening up and being vulnerable also depends on the landing pad. So the landing pad has to feel safe. We have to create a safe space. Yeah. And I think with anyone, when you're having a conversation, people tend to sort of open up the more time you spend time with them, and also making sure that we're not just badgering him with questions. It's more of conversations, and he just sort of opened up. It's like an onion. So you peel little by little.
Hi, it's Lucas Moore with Team JVS out of Washington, D.C. I have a question about the success that's shown on the screen for Tyler. We get to see the positives and the negatives of it. What led to the decision to actually show his skeptics' opinions during the film?
I mean, I think that, when we started this documentary, we wanted to present the entire story and not just, oh, this is TP and he's so successful and he's so great. We wanted to talk about him as a human being, and every human, especially when you get to that type of success, you have the pros and the cons. You have the negative and the positive. You have the people that are slightly opposed, and you have the people that are your fans. So without putting them into the documentary, then we wouldn't have actually been telling a full story of TP and giving that transparency.
Correct. And also, polarity is important in most films. I think you need to give space to have conversations with each other, because also the critics we had the chance and privilege to speak with came with their own perspective of why
and their own truth.
They were opposing their own truth, and that space needs to exist because art is so personal, and oftentimes it sort of connects to us in an emotional way, and emotions are so custom made based on our experiences. So something that I might see as offensive, he might find inspiring. So leaving that room for the conversation is a very important part of this filmmaking. And I think they also sort of opened the door for us to dive deeper in knowing a little bit more about the people who either don't know his work or oppose his work.
Hi, I'm Christine from Party Chat Podcast News. And the question that I want to ask, because Tyler Perry has been in the limelight for a very long time. Even you guys were saying you guys were following him for close to a decade. He's had many interviews, a couple of books. What is the different take or the specific take that you want the audience to have from viewing this project?
Well, I think we want audiences to feel more than what is seen as taken away. I think this film can speak to many people, whether you are an entrepreneur starting something. Hopefully you'll feel inspired by watching the story and sort of how he maneuvered in creating his own formula and signing deals and making the TV deals possible and acquiring an army base and turning it into a movie studio. Not just any studio, one of the biggest motion picture studios in the United States. And it's also part of a neighborhood that is disenfranchised and bringing some sort of growth in the neighborhood. And there's an impact that is felt. And if you unfortunately, as someone who's experienced trauma, hopefully you can sort of see your story a little bit and come a little closer to healing and forgiveness. For us, we learn so much about forgiveness. I think we hear the word forgiveness and love often. To see it in practice, it's quite different. I don't know. For me as a mother, I relate to it in a different way as well. So we feel like there's something for everyone. If you're not a fan, hopefully your voice is heard as well. If you don't know anything about Tyler, hopefully you have a very intimate portrait of a man.
Yeah, hopefully the audiences just see themselves in it. Like, the best thing about filmmaking is you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself than you do about the subject. So as we're filming for a decade and putting it together and doing the edit, it's like, man, like, what haven't I fixed in my life? What about this trauma that I thought about? What about this dream that I have? And then, kind of just start reflecting a little bit more. So hopefully when the audience sees this, they see themselves in it. And they get to reflect on their lives and say, okay, well, if TP could do it, maybe someone that comes from where we come from can do the same thing.
Yeah, and also just to add a little bit, the perception of a mogul, oftentimes the process of the work is not visible. So most people I know, a lot of the young generation sort of want to make something of themselves really fast, shortcuts, but to actually see the hard work in process, and someone who's self-made. This is a man who used to sleep in his car, and the same exit he used to take as a homeless man in his car in his Geo Metro as a 6'6" man. Now that exit is named after him. So it's a very unreal story that you couldn't even, fiction wouldn't even amount
Stranger
to.
than fiction.
Yeah.
Thank you. As a child who was previously abused when I was a kid and now I'm an adult, I felt seen, so thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. And also, I love your hat.
I was going to say, I love the hat.
The hat is fire.
We can't see the detail, but we see the structure.
Happy
Friday.
Hi, Dana Abercrombie, The Coalition. I'm actually fascinated by the structure of the film. This is called Maxine's Baby. So you had the goal of weighing both Maxine's story and Tyler's story. Without one, you can't have the other. Can you talk about, one, the balance between the two, but also making her always the focal point, where we always go back to her story every time that Tyler says something?
Wow, that's a great question. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And a lot of the film, and we're obviously going with TP throughout all these years, it always goes back to love. And his mom was his hero. And she has to be woven through that whole story because she's woven through Tyler. And so to have his story not kind of touch base with her every single time, during different topics and different traumas and different successes and different heartbreaks, me and G always felt that it was important to keep her as like the nucleus of the whole entire story.
Yeah, she's the heart.
Yeah.
And also, you know, oftentimes we don't get to know the reason why people are successful. You know, people just don't become successful because they're just driven by economic gain. I think that's part of it. But he says in this beautiful speech that when we were digging through a lot of archive,
Stealing archive.
you know, the stealing archive, allegedly.
Allegedly.
He says, you know, I did this from my mother. I wanted to make enough money so she can leave an abusive home.
Yeah.
That was the drive. That's the core, the beginning, you know, and ended up being a whole another story.
Yeah.
But she's always been the heart, the reason, you know, and also she's the practice of love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is so much conversation around all kinds of trauma, whether it's domestic abuse or child abuse, poverty. There's so much in this film. And love, like Armani said, she's love. She's our heart. And her voice just like melts your heart when we heard the audio. You know, I wish we had enough to have her more throughout the film. But thank you for that question, because we felt her presence throughout, especially throughout the editing process.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Jill Monroe again. So in listening to you share some of the moments that as directors stuck out to you, what did you learn about Tyler through this process? I'm sure you went in with a certain perspective and viewpoint, and over the course of 10 years, that's a lot of time. So what did you learn, and what maybe changed about your thoughts as you worked through this process?
You want to take it
You
first?
want to go first? I want to hear what you learned.
Well, I was with him obviously every single day for like 10 years, filming not only the old studio, but the new studio as well. And like, what I learned most is like the burden of sacrifice that he kind of always has carried for people like us. And that's very much seen in the people that work, at the studio every single day. People that he gives opportunities to that maybe they wouldn't get an opportunity if he didn't work that hard, if he didn't sacrifice, if he didn't take, you know, being that first person over the hill trying to make a place for us. And I think that the more I chilled with him, and obviously like we became such, you know, he's my father figure now. Like he is someone that I constantly try to make proud, but it's more so because of what he does for other people. And that's what's the most inspiring thing for me. Is like, wow, like there's such a deeper reasoning as to why he does the things that he does, as opposed to like, I just want to be successful. Like that's absolutely not even the beginning layer of why he does what he does. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah. And also we there's a quote that he's used a few times, which is, your dreams are tied to other people's dreams. And to actually see that in practice, that meant every decision he made affects everyone around him. And to have that kind of care, to carry that kind of care, and also that love and care is infectious. You see that become part of everyone that works at the studio. You know, we've interviewed a few people that worked with him for 15 plus years, and we've asked them, what made you stay? Why are you still here? And oftentimes, of course, there is growth within the company, but there is also, where else would I work for who's like a black man in this position, who cares about me and my family?
Yeah.
So this studio is not just only his, it's also mine. I care about this studio. You know, it's whether it's from the maintenance crew or security to his first AD to the producers. There's some sort of autonomy that they feel. And I don't know, I haven't seen that anywhere else. And I think it's a very special feeling. And to see that, to learn that throughout this 10 years. You know, we've had front row seat at this man's sort of movement every day. So actually those philosophy that he lives by in action is what was really mind-blowing for me, and learned a great deal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi. When listening to you guys talk about this, there's a point in the film where someone said, I think it might be Tyler, where he says, "I really don't want to make this about race," and but the discussion that you just had about how people want to stay, about the impact that he has, about this is my studio as well. What do you think this piece does say about race?
Well, I would say that what TP has been able to do and giving other people that may have not gotten an opportunity, that is what the film, in my opinion, says about race. It's, hey, look at this man who has built this basically safe haven where people can learn this trade of filmmaking and provide for their families, where we have never really had that type of place anywhere. Like, we've had to like really claw our way into Hollywood. And then to have TP, a one black man, own this studio that's so grand that every single soundstage is named after another black icon, and just uplifting other people as opposed to making it just about him. I feel like the film really highlights what the sacrifice that he's made and also what he's doing for our community. You know, so it's incredible. I know that me personally, I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and I never thought in a million years that I would be able to be in a studio where people value my ideas and value my creativity without hitting a lottery, you know? And it doesn't feel that way at TPS, you know?
Yeah. And also, I think, how can it not be a part of race sometimes? You know, I think a lot of topics are weaved throughout the film. And I think what Tyler's quote meant is when he's talking about the 1090 deal, right? There wasn't anything like that back then. And creating that formula, you know, he said, I'm going to fund 10 episodes on my own, create the show, you know, and then let's make a deal, create 90 more and go to syndication. Yeah. That formula became sort of the blueprint for 2.5 Men and all other shows that sort of came after that for a period of time. And there was nothing like that before Tyler, you know. And he's also a black man from the South. He knows those day-to-day interactions of the struggle, right? And also, he is 6'6" height, and he will walk into a room, oftentimes mostly white men. He had to physically shrink himself so he doesn't appear threatening. Just even the physicality aspects, right? So he's also endured so much, and oftentimes when people endure so much, they're not gonna just lead a conversation with the struggle, right? Because of racism, this. He's gonna say, this is what I had to do, regardless of the reason, regardless of what was going against me. So not only he was a newcomer, he's not from academia, created his own formula, sort of started out from doing plays, and to have a TV and theater success, and on top of that, motion picture, that's unheard of. So you have to be resilient. And we have also another incredible quote from Melody Hobbs, who sort of says, my husband, George Lucas, created Lucasfilm, and I can, and it was very hard for him. And he's a white man. I cannot imagine how much harder it was for Tyler to create what he's created. And I think that sort of speaks for itself. And, you know, as much as we're all kind of used to hearing the race conversations, but to actually see what it looks like in the work and going kind of not giving up, because regardless of what's against you, is I feel like this film shows, and hopefully it does.
Well, thank you. I do think it was a powerful moment to see all those studios named after Black people. So I agree with that. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
Hi again. In the documentary, there's a point where he talks a lot about the things that he had to do to escape after he would be punished or have some sort of interaction, negative interaction with his father, the cubby hole and the places that he would see. And I was curious about the fact that in these discussions, the criticisms of his movies, a lot of people seem to sweep under the rug how important it is for Black people to see things like what he creates in terms of the comfort that they can bring, the familiarity, and all of that. Can you go into that a bit and how actually important that is and can be for the emotional state of people watching this entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the, inspiration behind their creativity. His creativity was sort of the escape for him. It was a form of art heals, if we're lucky, for some of us. And by sort of using his imagination at an early age was, that's how he was sort of able to stay sane.
Yeah.
And not lose a part of himself or have, extreme personality disorder. And this is sort of like a research we've done with experts of like how children who grow up in abused home tend to sort of grow up with multiple personalities or have some sort of social awkwardness and more. And what he did sort of saved him, and which later on became, what sort of is a creative core that he taps into to create the characters and the shows and the films and the theater. And that's also the sensitivity of his experience. He's able to speak to other people's pain directly. So, I mean, that's just, he says it, in the interview when we asked him, how do you feel about what you endured looking back? And he said, all of it became part of my creativity. And that's how he sort of stayed from losing his mind in that little hole.
Yeah, and just to follow up, his creativity and his imagination is the thing that gave him hope.
Yeah.
And all you guys are creatives too. Like, I'm sure that you guys have gone through some terrible things as well, and you guys kind of like we all do. We latch onto something that can give us hope, and maybe that was him making his mom laugh, and then he made that into a story. And obviously, everyone has an opinion on when they see art, but to know that it comes from a truthful place, whether you like it or not, the art deserves to be made because it gives that person who made it hope or expression or something. And in the film, we wanted to kind of like really highlight that and say, hey, this is this man's brush, and he gets to do whatever it is that he wants to do with it. And then being on the road with him during the play specifically, and like going into like especially like little towns like Shreveport and all the other little things during the Chitlin circuit, I saw how people saw themselves in this and how they laughed and how they didn't have to worry about something for 3 hours. And then they talked about things that were plaguing the community that we live in, but it was masked under laughter. Yeah. And so it was just something so beautiful in the sense of like, wow, this is giving people hope because he did it for himself first. And, it's just kind of like a beautiful universe kind of in that way of art,
Nice, thank you. And it's a beautiful documentary.
Oh,
really
thank you.
Now, during the film, we get to see Tyler's amazing work ethic and how his peers and heroes in the business are just amazed that he works so hard and at the pace that he works. Did you all feel that that was a part of his story that needed to be highlighted in this film, especially because he admits in it that the work ethic came from a tragic figure in his life?
Hell yeah. I mean, the way he works is crazy. It's incredible, and the way that he's able to innovate how things can be done, not just in film, but also in his business acumen side, is incredible. And, to not include that would be like kind of like ridiculous not to include, because he's such a unique person when it comes to that. Like every single day being with him, I don't understand how. I'm trying to learn myself how to work like him, But it's something that makes him extremely special, and it's like that's like the secret sauce, like his work ethic right there.
And also like the word mogul and icon is thrown around so much, but it needs value, and that value is the work, right? The process. He actually has so much respect for the work and the creativity. He enjoys working, but he also understands that because of his hard work, there's a huge umbrella that he covers.
Yeah.
So he can't just sort of say, I'm going to just take off a month. He can, of course he can, but he's also sort of feels responsible for so many that are around him. You know, there are a lot of ex-cons who work at the studio. For example, when the pandemic hit, he was the first person to open the studio again, create a formula and how to continue production. So everyone continues working. So first-time homeowners didn't lose their job. Families, you know, there are a lot of people who have families who they support by working at Tyler Perry Studios. And also, like, continue to stay open for the community, because there's also a big part of community outreach that's happening. So,
And he kept everyone safe.
And kept everyone safe. I mean, that formula was insane. Like Camp Quarantine, you called it.
What a wild time. What a wild time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The question that I want to ask, since you guys spent so much time with him and created something absolutely beautiful, the documentary is like gives chills. I'm in shock. A lot of feelings, all the feelings. But why was now the right time to release this project? You know, he released the studios a while ago, and you know has created so many wonderful things. You know, before and after. Why was now the perfect time?
I personally feel like documentaries are timeless. Films are timeless. And documentaries and stories like this feel like they're timeless. And yes, we could release this next year, the year after, or 4 years ago. But I think we wanted to respect the story and let the story sort of lead us when to stop, you know? We can continue filming for another 5 years because this man is constantly dreaming. There's so much we wish we could have filmed while we were editing. We're like, oh, grab your camera, let's go.
Right.
But we had to sort of say, okay, we have this much, over 500 terabyte of footage. It's not including archives, right? And the verite felt like it brought us closer to the man. You know, we also didn't want to wait too long where the story felt, the opening of the studio felt outdated. But also, we were very glad we continued filming after the studio opened because pandemic hit 3 months after that. You know, and also, I'm from a part of the world that is kind of I don't know how to explain it, but film was the way we sort of saw the world. You know, cinema sort of changed our life. You know, I'm from Ethiopia. Armani's a Dominican background. And here we are. We made a film about an African-American icon, you know? And I think about kids in my country, kids in Lagos, kids in Louisiana and Atlanta who can see this film and see themselves and hopefully feel like they're not just their environment. There's more. They can dream. So we hope that this film continues to travel and reach people.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is an incredible piece of work, and like everyone said, it makes a great introduction to the man that Tyler Perry is. So we definitely appreciate it.
No, and thank you guys for your time and your questions. I appreciate y'all, and you know.
Absolutely. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you.